The Fall of James. My name is James. I'm an old man now. I sit near the window every morning with my tea. The birds sing and I watch the sun rise. But my mind often goes back to the days when I was young and full of dreams. I was a bright boy. I loved books. I loved learning new things at school. My teachers always smiled when they saw me. My parents often said, "James will do great things." I believed them. I felt special. I wanted to make them proud. I had a goal. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people, save lives, and do something good. I studied every night. I never missed a class. My friends called me the smart one. I felt happy when people believed in me. But one day, everything changed. I met some new boys at the park. They looked different. They wore cool clothes and spoke with confidence. They laughed loud and said school was useless. I was curious. I wanted to be like them, even just a little. They told me, "Come with us, James. Don't be boring." At first I said no, but then I said yes. I thought it would be just one time. But it wasn't. That one time became many. I started skipping school. I stopped doing my homework, and slowly I started to lose myself. The new friends I had made were not like my old ones. They stayed out late, smoked strange things, and laughed at everything. I didn't like it at first, but I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to feel cool. So I stayed with them. I thought I could stop any time, but I was wrong. I stopped going to class. My grades dropped fast. My teachers called my parents. They said, "James is not the same boy." My parents were sad. My mother cried at night. My father looked at me with tired eyes. I said nothing. I just stayed in my room, feeling empty inside. Soon I didn't care about school at all. I started lying to everyone. I told my parents I was fine. I told myself I was fine too. But deep inside I was lost. My dreams were gone. I didn't know who I was anymore. I felt angry, sad, and confused every day. My old friends tried to talk to me. They said, "James, this is not you," but I pushed them away. I didn't want to hear the truth. I didn't want to see the person I had become. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I felt like a shadow of my old self. Time passed and things got worse. I started using drugs with my new friends. At first it was just for fun. Then it became a habit. Then it became a need. My body felt weak. My mind felt heavy. I stopped smiling. I stopped caring. I was falling fast and no one could catch me. One night I sat alone in my room. My parents were asleep, but I couldn't sleep. I felt empty inside. I thought about all the things I had lost, my friends, my future, and my happiness. I felt like I was drowning, but no one could see me. I didn't know what to do anymore. I thought, maybe my life is over. I stopped talking to everyone. I didn't want help. I didn't want anyone to try to fix me. My world became dark. I felt lost in a sea of sadness. I had no hope. Every day felt the same. Wake up, use drugs, lie to my parents, and go to bed. That was my life now. One day I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I thought, what's the point? I felt like there was no way out. I thought the only choice left was to end it all. I stood by the window and looked out at the dark sky. My heart felt heavy, but just as I was about to make that terrible choice, something stopped me. I heard a knock at the door. It was my mother. She came in slowly and sat beside me. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything at first, but I could feel her love. She didn't ask questions. She didn't yell. She just held my hand, and for the first time in months I cried. That night something changed inside me. It wasn't a miracle, but it felt like a small spark. I didn't want to end my life. I wanted to try again. I wanted to find my way back. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. The next few days were hard. I couldn't forget the darkness that had taken over me, but every time I felt like giving up, I remembered my mother's tears and the warmth of her hand. I knew I had to fight. I couldn't continue living the way I was. I needed help. It was hard to admit, but I had to try. I decided to talk to someone. It wasn't easy, but I went to see a therapist. The first day I didn't say much. I just sat there, feeling nervous and unsure. But the therapist was kind. She didn't judge me. She listened. For the first time in a long time, I felt heard. Slowly, I began to open up. The road to healing was long, but I started making small changes. I stopped hanging out with my old friends. I started focusing on my studies again. It wasn't easy, and I had many bad days, but I kept going. I remembered the hope I had found in my mother's love. I had to find a way to move forward. One day, I realized something important. I wasn't alone. I had my family. I had people who cared about me. I had a chance to rebuild my life. It wasn't going to be perfect, but it was worth it. I wasn't going to give up on myself. I was ready to try again. That was the first step toward my new life. It was small, but it was enough. The darkness was still there, but now I had light to guide me. As the weeks passed, I began to feel stronger. I started going to school again, and slowly my grades improved. I knew I had a long way to go, but I didn't feel hopeless anymore. The pain was still there, but it wasn't as heavy. Each day I took one step at a time. I learned to be patient with myself. One day I saw my old friends. They looked the same, but I had changed. They asked me why I wasn't hanging out with them anymore. I didn't know how to explain it. I just told them that I needed to focus on myself, and I couldn't keep living the way I was. They didn't understand, but I didn't care. I had to do what was best for me. My parents noticed the change in me. They saw how I was trying harder and how I was starting to smile again. I could tell they were proud, but I also knew they were still worried. They had seen me fall so far. But this time I wasn't going to let them down. I was determined to make them proud, not just for them, but for myself. The days weren't always easy, but I kept pushing forward. I knew I was on the right path. Sometimes I would remember the dark days, but I used those memories to remind myself how far I had come. I knew I wasn't perfect, but I was trying, and that was enough. One night, as I sat in my room, I realized that I was finally starting to feel at peace. I had made it through the hardest part. I wasn't lost anymore. I had found my way back to life. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I was ready to face it. Years passed and I grew older. The dark days slowly faded, but the lessons stayed. Life had its ups and downs, but I had learned to face them. I became stronger and learned that no matter how tough life was, it was always worth living. One day, I saw a young boy who reminded me of myself. He was angry, lost and alone. I wanted to help him, but I knew that the path to change had to come from within. I started talking to him, sharing my story and listening to his. It wasn't easy, but I could see that he was starting to open up. I realized that life wasn't about being perfect or avoiding pain. It was about growing, learning, and helping others along the way. Now, as an old man, I look back and know that I've come a long way. The journey wasn't easy, but I made it. I will keep living my life with the lessons I've learned, hoping my story helps others find their way too.